to welcome you today with Ministry with Coffee, and we're so glad that you're here.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm excited to share your story. You had some challenging times when you were younger, and I do want the audience to hear this because I don't think you're alone. I think others have experienced similar stories, but I want them to hear your heart and what God has done for you. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about the event that happened in your life that was very difficult.
Absolutely. It was a long time ago. I'm in my 40s now, but I lost my mom at 4 years old.
Mhm.
And that creates all kinds of things as you grow up as a motherless child, as you grow up as a motherless adult. Like it doesn't stop affecting your life when you don't have that mom to depend on. You don't have that mom that is there for birthday parties or when your kids are born or every mile marker in life. You miss your mom. And even though I didn't know her because I was so young, there's still that longing in my heart that or that just that place that God has filled through the years, but just that place of longing to have that mother figure in your life. So I can go into more of the story of like how it happened, or we can just keep moving forward on like how it's affected me throughout my childhood and my adult life and as a mother today. So
Well, I kind of would like to go back to the beginning of how that
okay.
happened, and then we'll go into the challenges of what that happened like through your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. My mom and dad were married right out of high school in Joplin, Missouri. And my dad had traveled back to Dallas, Texas to be with his dad. He was working with some construction stuff. But as I got older, I realized that my mom actually had been cheating on my dad. So they were actually separating. And my mom had been out with some friends the night before. I remember being in a parking lot with her with some friends. There was a lot of drinking and just partying going on. And I woke up the next morning to sleeping in the bed with my mom and not being able to wake her up. And so
Oh,
a lot of banging on the door, a lot of banging on the windows. We didn't have cell phones back in 1980, so nobody
yeah.
could get a hold of her on the home phone, and so the boyfriend knew something was wrong, and so he sent the police over, my grandparents over, and, I was obviously pretty self-sufficient little 4-year-old, so I remember going to the kitchen and pulling up a chair to the pantry, climbing on the counter and got me some graham crackers. So I sat down and I was eating some graham crackers and the banging kept happening on the door. And so it was when you had the old chain locks up high.
Yeah.
So I pulled a chair up to the chain lock of the door and unlocked the door and um, the police took me, handed me to my grandparents, and they came in to investigate what happened. So to this day, I still don't have 100% clarity on what happened. My dad's speculation is possible drug overdose. Toxic shock syndrome was also discovered about this time period, and or she just died in her sleep of an unknown cause. Her death certificate says unknown causes. So I have a copy of her death certificate. So that created all kinds of anxiety as a child, not knowing why your mother passed away or fear of, what's going to happen to me in my sleep kind of thing. So,
I bet. Yeah. That's kind of tragic when you hear about things like that.
mhm.
So how did that what are some of the challenges? I mean, you talked about it, the events that happened when your mom wasn't present. So how did that affect your everyday life growing up? I mean, did you see any kind of effects that that might have had on you personally? You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. So growing up young, uh, my dad left for 6 months. So I actually lived with my grandmother for a while so he could get his life back together. Obviously, he has to come home to his passed away, separated wife that had been cheating on. I can't even imagine the trauma that he experienced during that time. But school was hard. Like I couldn't focus. I still remember my first grade teacher just being in the low reading group or the low math group, like and it wasn't that I wasn't capable, there wasn't any cognitive issues, it was because I had experienced childhood trauma, and so high school was hard, definitely turned to the wrong things all throughout my adolescent years that, could have led me down some really, really terrible paths, but God protected me through all of that looking back, so, um, gosh, just so many things. My relationship with women was affected because I didn't know how to have a relationship with women. Being raised by a dad, I learned how to change spark plugs and change the oil and how to ride motorcycles and be outside, and so I kinda grew up in, like, a tomboy, going to the deerlies kinda gal. So, there's just a lot of crazy dynamics when I was a young child that affected school, my social, life, my peers, how we started in marriage. Michael and I started a marriage, uh, codependency on him, all kinds of things it affected, and so obviously, I've overcome a lot of those things, but it wasn't an easy road. Childhood was not an easy road, let me say that, and so
Think that that's really good for the listeners because people are gonna relate to this. People that have experienced this kind of trauma are going to go, I know exactly what she's talking about. I went through that. I had those same type of issues. I struggled in school and or in
yeah,
high school I kind of got with the wrong crowd for a little while and but praise the Lord, he saved me through that.
mhm, yeah,
Yeah. So, but you did have some wins. So tell me when did your life start turning around? When
mhm,
did you finally meet God?
yeah,
Where's God in all of this?
absolutely. So, Michael and I met right out of high school. My husband today, we've been together since '94.
Okay, okay, you win.
So, um, we spent our first probably 5 to 10 years just f having fun. We just traveled and we had fun, and we weren't seeking the Lord at all, and sweet little Elizabeth Carter comes along in 2004, and I felt like there was something missing from our lives, and so I honestly got a postcard from the current church we attend, Stonewater Church, and I started attending there, and I knew from the moment that I walked in the door that there was something different about this place, and immediately got involved. My husband did not come along for a while. It's funny because we started meeting in a movie theater back then, and he was like, "I'm not going to church in a movie theater." And so it took him till Easter that year. I think I started in January, and he came Easter, and he ended up knowing more people than I did when he came for the first time because he grew up knowing Laura Whidden and all these people that he had gone to school with in the town.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, that we live in, and so, that's kind of our story, like, he had accepted Jesus when he was younger, but didn't really have anybody to walk it out. I did not accept Christ until we had a running group that was running a half marathon together. It was like the first journey groups or community groups, they were called adventure groups, and
Mhm.
we set out to run a half marathon together. There were 13 of us ladies that did it, and I was just out on a training run one day in Tolar, Texas, and on Asbury Road, I just surrendered my life. I just knew that there was
Mm.
more for me, and um, I just gave it all to him in the middle of a country road. And I still go back to that place and remember that day. And I'm thankful for the leadership of our church and those two
Mhm.
boys riding motorcycles out there and deciding to start a church in Granbury, Texas, because I don't know what my life would look like if God had not intervened. And just taken me off of that trail of always trying to find more, seeking more, seeking more, seeking more,
Yeah.
trying to fill that emptiness, that void of not having a mom when I was younger, and just seeking the wrong things, whether it be career or
Mhm.
hobbies or alcohol or whatever it may be, shopping
Mhm.
addictions, you name it, I had it, so, thank God for regen, right? But, I just don't know where I'd be, so
Yeah, yeah. That's so good. I'm so glad you're sharing all of that because I think it's so vital to for people to know what your walk was really like. And I love that you go back to that same spot because I just think that's important to remember that day of when you finally said, "Okay, God, I can't do this anymore. I need you." And
yep,
he does. He shows up every time. And everybody's story is so different, but yet it's the same.
yes.
It's the same.
We have
It's
these
the
redemption stories, yeah.
yeah, it's just so good, and he always answers that cry,
Mhm.
I mean, we always hear, "If you seek him, you'll find him," if you knock on the door, he'll answer, and, but yet, it takes us so long to finally really
I
seek him,
know.
it's like, "Okay, so how long do I have to get hit on the head?" I mean, how many times do you have to hit me on the head before I finally say, "Okay, God, you win, you win."
Yes.
So we talked about that. So how are you using your story right now to help other people? Because I know what you and Michael are doing. So would you share with the viewers what you guys are doing and how you're sharing your story and how it's changing lives?
Absolutely. So I've had the opportunity the last several years to be a pastor wife,
Mhm.
and that's come with all kinds of growth and patience and grace and all the things. But my heart's really been education. So I've done everything from kids ministry to starting preschools to teaching to vice principal. Like education's my heart. And I think God moves me every couple years into new situations and new places because he knows I have influence in the areas of children and their families. And so I'm really drawn to the downtrodden. I'm really drawn to those that are going through suffering and just need a helping hand, that just need that person to come alongside of them. I'm not really going to say I'm like the cry on your shoulder type, but I'm more of the let's make a plan type. And I think God wires us in those ways for his purposes. Like as women, we don't have to be the cry on the shoulder type all the time. There's times and places for that, but I think more than anything, I've been a safe place for people to land to help them figure out what direction they need to go next. And that empowers me and energizes me like nothing else. So, at the preschool, we had a dad lose his wife. And so obviously there was a lot of compassion there for that little girl and just extra care. We had a little girl pass away in the preschool, their sister of a little girl that was there. And so any of those type of situations, I'm not one to like step away from and go, oh, I'm going to let somebody else handle this. I actually am energized by those situations to press in and know like God has his hand on it. And through the suffering, we know that in the valleys is when we find him. And there will be those mountaintop situations that we can look back on and say, okay, he brought me through this for a reason. And there's no part of my childhood, Trisha, that I regret. Like even not having a mom, yeah, there was emptiness, there was longing, there was suffering, there was crying, there was uncomfortability, there was loneliness. But in my adult life, like I'm not sad about it anymore. And Jesus has provided so many people in my life, not just for me to be loved on, but to love others. And that's so fulfilling because there's no greater joy than loving God's people. And I always say, like, we're not looking for the blessing, but we're blessed by our obedience. So when we press in and we're obedient to do the things that He's called us to do to love other people well, He shows up and He shows us just how good He is. And there's no greater joy than that. There's just not. So, and hopefully, out of those situations, salvations are occurring. And um, so, yeah, He's given me education within the church. I'm currently in public school, but he's also given Michael this ministry of RIM, which is reach, equip, multiply. And we get to go love on pastors and churches all over the United States. So I've had a great opportunity just to love on different women and people in their church congregations over the last year through my husband's current ministry.
That's so good. I really love that ministry too. It's doing so much good. And I think as a pastor's wife, I think you can vouch for this. It's difficult. I mean,
Mm.
you can't please everyone. And it seems like when you're on the platform, I mean, you hear it, me as a member, you hear what people are saying around you. I can't believe she wore those shoes, or I can't believe, and you hear the silliest stuff, and
Mhm.
and you think, why does this matter?
Yeah.
And and it's just such a hard place to be because everybody is a critic and everyone has an opinion. And they're like, I love you, but it's really hard to love you sometimes. So let's ask that question. How hard is it to love those that are not so easy to love
Yeah, I
as
think
a
it's
pastor's wife?
yeah, it's like a true like dying of self daily. So just
Yeah.
total dependence on the Lord because there's so much loneliness with being in leadership roles as women,
Mhm.
especially. So when you hit those places of rawness or maybe vulnerability from your past or something that creeps in that's like, okay, why is that hurt? Why does that one hurt a little bit more? You really have to self reflect and you have to
Mhm.
be strong in the Lord and just know like, it's okay. It's not about me, it's about them. And
Absolutely.
man, we are so called to press in and love them harder. Like, we're supposed to
Uh,
love our enemies, and that is the hardest thing to do. We wanna pick up the phone, we wanna gossip about it, but if you're
uh-huh.
a pastor's wife, there's nobody to call because everybody is gonna be affected by this situation. So, um, yeah, being a safe place to land for ladies is
Mhm.
definitely something I wanna dig further into. I've been so focused on kids and
Uh-huh.
families that I think the Lord's really growing me in the area of, maybe doing some pastor wives retreats and maybe starting to see what that looks like ministry-wise of helping women just have a safe place to land and no judgment zone kind of reality for them. So
I really
that's
love
a
that.
desire. I'm not there yet, but that's definitely a desire. So
Yeah, I really love that because I think it's so important. The thing that popped out is they just don't have anyone to talk to.
mhm.
When you're in that position, you have to be careful because you don't want the enemy to have a door or a foothold to get in.
Yeah,
And sometimes he can use a situation like that to just really come in and cause even more chaos and
yeah.
division. And so you have to be careful. And so I love that you have, I mean, you have to say, I don't have
Mhm.
anyone I can talk to.
Yeah.
And because if I talk to someone, then it's going to hurt more people.
People.
And
Mhm.
that's the worst thing. That's the worst thing we want in the body of Christ. We want unity.
Yeah.
Unity is what God has called us to do, is
Mhm.
to make unity. And so I love that you are saying that and knowing that, hey, I'm not picking up the phone. I'm going to
Mhm.
the throne.
That's
And
right.
and and that's the most important thing that we can do for sure. Because he's going to help us through that. He'll get us through that. That's normally, like you said, it's a trauma in the past. If it hit a nerve, it hit a nerve from back a long time ago that you thought, maybe I thought I was done with that already. How did that pop its head back up? And then we go, okay, okay, what's in there? Let's deal with it and let's go ahead and take it to the foot of the cross and let's move forward because we've got things to do.
Right.
The
And most
other
of
thing,
the time it's a distraction from the enemy anyways, and so we have to recognize that spiritual warfare and, okay, is this something in me? Is this something in them? Or is this just the enemy trying to cause division because there's a big event coming or, we're opening a church, whatever it might be. So, uh,
exactly.
yeah. Mm.
And the other thing I like that you said that I will want to go back real quick, and that is that you talked about, I really don't have any regrets of what happened in my life growing up. And I think that is so important. I think when you're finally at peace and when God has made that healing has taken place in you,
Mhm.
there is there is no regret. You look at
Mhm.
everything as a way of making us into the person that he created us to be. I mean, he uses all of that for the good.
He does. He does. So, a recent situation at school, I had 3 students this week lose houses to tornadoes, and um, I just keep reassuring those kids, like, God has a purpose and a plan in all this. I know you just lost everything, but you're alive. No one was injured. And He's going to turn this mess into a beautiful masterpiece. And things are going to be better for your family on the other side of this tragedy. And I can only say those things with hope because I've experienced it. And so without those things from my past, there's no way for us to minister and use our testimonies to help others. And scripture is pretty clear on those things and how we're supposed to press in and lean on him in those hard times, and that he's refining us. He's just clearing the pathway for us to be used for his purposes. And little kids can't quite understand that yet. They're 10 and 11 years old, but just planting those seeds of his goodness is so rewarding, even through tragedy. And they're all in. It's been so cool because there's just these little God winks all throughout this last week of people coming forth and providing clothing and food. And it's amazing the people that even come out of your past that want to help people in these type of situations. And so it's just been a blessing to serve these families this week and love them through this situation. So
So good. Thank you for sharing today.
sure,
But
yeah.
before we leave, I just kind of want to want you to leave one final word if you want to share some hope and some encouragement with people that have a similar background history that you have, or
Yeah.
maybe a pastor's wife. So, what kind of encouragement would you leave with them today before we say goodbye?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would just say we can't get ahead of ourselves. Like God has a purpose and a plan for each day that we're given. So he tells us not to worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will have enough worries of its own. We can only worry about today. And no matter what you're going through, whether it's be your childhood trauma, your childhood experiences, or something you're dealing with in ministry today, that
Mhm.
God has placed you in the perfect season at the perfect time for a perfect purpose, and that you don't have to question that. You can just ride the wave with Him as your guide, and get some people on your team that you can confide in, like some trusting friends that you can confide in. Maybe it's outside the church if you're a pastor's wife. That maybe join a workout group. I don't know. Join some kind of hobby group or something. Find something that's yours, and those that are just struggling today, I just say, He is your hope, He is your promise, He is your future, and He is with you. And you are loved no matter what. And He'll bring you through it, whatever it might be. And I'm living proof of that. And just keep doing you. So that's all I have.
That's good. Thank you so much, Misty, for coming on, and thank you for sharing your heart with the
Sure.
listeners today. And I can't wait to see what God does with that and what He continues to do with you and Michael and your family. And I think Lizzie's coming on in a few weeks, so I'm really looking forward to talking to her, which is your girl. So I hope you have a great day, and thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today with Ministry with Coffee. We are so glad that you are here. We pray that this episode brought you hope and encouragement. And we ask that you like this page, and we also ask that you share it with your friends and your family. Thank you so much again for joining us and for being a part of Ministry with Coffee. Have a great day.